I didn't want to open the door, but curiosity got the better of me. I cleared my throat. "Who's there?" No response. I checked the peephole. At first, all I saw was darkness. Then, as my eyes adjusted, I saw movement, a shadow shifting just out of sight. Whoever it was, they were standing right outside my door, just beyond the peephole's range. I stepped back, pulse hammering. Every instinct screamed at me to stay silent, to pretend I wasn't there. But then, the doorknob rattled. Someone was trying to get in. I rushed to the small dresser, grabbing the heaviest thing I could find, a lamp. My hands were shaking. The rattling stopped, and for a few minutes, there was nothing but silence again. Then I heard footsteps, slow, measured, walking away. I exhaled in relief. Maybe it was a drunk guest who had mistaken their room. Maybe it was nothing. I forced myself to lie back down, keeping the lamp close, and eventually, exhaustion won over fear. I drifted into a restless sleep. But I woke up to something far worse. The closet door was open. I knew, with absolute certainty, that I had closed it before going to bed. My stomach twisted as I stared at the dark gap between the sliding doors. The room was utterly silent. I wanted to believe that it had just slid open on its own, but deep down, I knew better. Someone had been in my room. I slowly reached for my phone, praying for service. 1 bar. Enough to call the front desk. The old man answered on the second ring. "Yeah? There's someone in my room," I whispered. I think someone was inside while I was sleeping." A long pause. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Lock your door. Stay inside. Don't open it for anyone." Then he hung up. I sat there, paralyzed, the silence stretching around me. Minutes passed. Then, just when I thought maybe I was safe, I heard footsteps outside my door again. But this time, they didn't stop. The doorknob turned once more, slowly, almost teasingly. Then a voice, muffled and low, whispered from the other side. "I saw you." I clamped a hand over my mouth, stifling a gasp. My heart was slamming against my ribs. I grabbed my keys, ready to make a run for it, but then I heard the old man's voice yelling down the hallway. "Hey! Get away from there!" There was a scuffle, heavy footsteps running. The sound of a door slamming somewhere down the hall. Then silence. Minutes later, the front desk clerk knocked on my door, identifying himself before I dared open it. His face was pale, his lips pressed into a grim line. "There was a man," he said, voice low. "He's been hanging around the motel for days. I called the police." By the time they arrived, the man was gone. The police searched my room and found what I had feared most: small holes drilled into the walls, hidden behind paintings and vents. Someone had been watching me the entire time. I left that night, driving until the sun rose, shaking the entire way. The man was never caught. Late night horror, the man in the motel ****. I still don't know why I took that road that night. It was late, almost midnight, and I was exhausted. The highway stretched endlessly under the dim glow of my headlights, the yellow lines blurring into one another as I fought the drowsiness creeping into my bones. I had been driving for hours, heading back home after a work trip that should have ended before sundown. But delays stacked up, and by the time I was finally on the road, darkness had already swallowed everything around me. My phone had barely any signal, and Google Maps had stopped loading miles ago. I was somewhere between two small towns, with nothing but forests and empty stretches of road around me. That's when I saw it, the flickering neon sign of a rundown motel standing just off the highway, promising a cheap, if not exactly comfortable, night's rest. I pulled into the cracked asphalt lot, my tires crunching over loose gravel. The place looked like something straight out of a horror movie. The sign above the office door read "Moonlightin'," but several letters were burnt out, leaving only "MONIGHTIN" glowing in the dark. The entire place smelled faintly of damp wood and old cigarette smoke. I stepped inside the front office. The receptionist was an older man, his face lined with deep wrinkles, his expression unreadable. He barely looked up as I asked for a room. His voice was raspy as he slid the key across the counter. Room 107. Far end. Something about his tone sent a small chill up my spine, but I brushed it off. It was late, I was tired, and paranoia was a poor companion. I took the key, grabbed my small overnight bag from the car, and made my way to the room. The hallway smelled like mildew, and the fluorescent lights flickered overhead. My room was at the very end of the corridor, isolated from the others. The door creaked open when I turned the key, revealing a dimly lit space with outdated furniture, a stained carpet, and a television that looked like it hadn't worked since the 90s. I locked the door, dropped my bag on the chair, and sighed. The exhaustion was overwhelming. I debated taking a shower but decided against it. Instead, I collapsed onto the bed, not even bothering to change out of my clothes. I was almost asleep when I heard it. A faint scraping sound. It was coming from outside my door. My breath caught in my throat. I held still, listening carefully, trying to convince myself that I had imagined it. But then it came again, a slow, deliberate scratching, like someone dragging a fingernail down the wooden surface. I sat up, heart pounding. My first instinct was to check the peephole, but something in me hesitated. Instead, I crept toward the door, pressing my ear against it. Silence. Then, a soft knock. I swallowed hard. Maybe it was the old man from the front desk, checking on something? Maybe another guest had the wrong room? The stranger in the gas station I should have stopped earlier. The road stretched dark and empty, nothing but the hum of my tires against the asphalt, and the occasional rustling of trees lining the desolate highway. It was past midnight, and exhaustion clung to me like a heavy fog. I was headed home from a business trip, a 6-hour drive that had turned into 8 because of unexpected delays. My phone's battery was nearly dead, and my gas gauge was inching dangerously close to empty. I hadn't seen a rest stop or another car for miles when a neon glow flickered in the distance. A gas station. Relief flooded me. I pulled into the station, its overhead lights humming like a swarm of insects. The place was deserted. An old, rusted truck sat near the convenience store, but there were no other cars, no attendants in sight. The place looked abandoned, yet the lights were on. I hesitated before stepping out, scanning the area. A lone security camera was mounted above the entrance, its red light blinking. I walked toward the pump and inserted my card. The screen flashed an error message, "Pay inside." Great. I walked toward the store. The door creaked as I pushed it open. The air inside was stale, the shelves lined with expired snacks and faded magazines. The counter was empty. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. Then, from the back room, a scraping sound. I froze. My heartbeat thumped in my ears. Maybe it was just an employee grabbing stock. I cleared my throat. "Hey, I need to pay for gas." The scraping stopped. Then, the back doors slowly creaked open. A man stepped out. His clothes were filthy, his skin smudged with dirt. His eyes, cold and unblinking, locked onto mine. He smiled, revealing yellow teeth. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice gravelly. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I forced a nervous chuckle. "Yeah, well, my car's on empty. Just need some gas, and I'll be on my way." The man didn't move. Instead, he reached behind the counter and pulled out something long and sharp, a hunting knife. "Station's closed," he murmured. Panic seized me. I took a slow step back, but he moved faster, circling the counter. I turned and bolted for the door. He lunged. The knife grazed my sleeve as I crashed through the door and sprinted to my car. My hands fumbled with the keys, my breath coming in ragged gasps. He was right behind me. I yanked the door open, dove inside, and slammed it shut just as his knife scraped against the glass. My fingers found the ignition. The engine roared to life. He pounded on the window, his expression twisted with rage. Then, a loud bang, a gunshot rang out. The man staggered, clutching his shoulder. I turned to see an old security guard limping out from the station's side entrance, shotgun smoking in his hands. "Gio!" he shouted at me. I didn't hesitate. I floored the gas pedal, tires screeching as I sped away. In my rearview mirror, I saw the guard standing over the man, yelling into a radio. I didn't stop driving until I reached the next town. I called the police, told them everything. They later confirmed the man was a drifter, suspected in multiple disappearances along the highway. They never found his truck, and the gas station had been abandoned for years. Weeks passed, but I couldn't shake the unease that lingered. The nightmares came often, visions of yellowed teeth, of a knife gleaming under flickering fluorescent lights. I tried to move on, but the feeling of being watched never left me. One evening, as I left work late, I noticed something odd. A car, an old rusted truck, parked outside my apartment building. The same truck I had seen at the gas station. My breath hitched. I hurried inside, locking every door and window. My mind raced. Had he escaped? Had he followed me? I checked the news, but there was no mention of the drifter. The police had lost track of him after that night. The next morning, I found something on my windshield. A single note, written in smudged handwriting. "I saw you first." I left town that day and never looked back. I never should have taken that shortcut. It was supposed to shave an hour off my trip, and at first it did. The road was narrow, winding through a thick forest that pressed in on both sides. I hadn't seen another car in ages, but I didn't mind. The solitude was nice. Peaceful, even. Until I saw him. At first, he was just a shape in my headlights, standing in the middle of the road. I hit the brakes hard, my tires skidding on loose gravel. My heart pounded as I fumbled for my high beams. The man didn't move. He stood perfectly still, watching me. He was tall, his clothes dark and tattered. His face was obscured by the shadows, but I could see the glint of something metallic in his hand. A knife? A pipe? My breath caught in my throat. I didn't want to find out. I threw my car into reverse, my pulse racing. As I backed up, the man took a step forward. Then another. Slow, deliberate movements. Like he knew I had nowhere to go. I glanced in my rearview mirror. The road behind me twisted into darkness. No way to turn around, no way to escape. I was trapped. Then the man smiled. I don't know how, but I saw it. A slow, knowing grin that sent ice down my spine. I floored the gas pedal. My car shot backward, tires kicking up dust. The man broke into a run. He was fast, faster than any human should be. My hands were slick with sweat as I fought to keep control. My car lurched over a bump, and suddenly, the engine sputtered. I looked down. The fuel gauge was on empty. No, this couldn't be happening. I had at least a quarter tank when I left. A metallic clang echoed through the night. He was on the hood. I screamed, slamming the brakes. The car skidded to a stop, throwing the man forward. He rolled off the hood, landing on the pavement with a sickening thud. For a second, everything was still. Then he got up. His arm twisted at an unnatural angle, but he didn't seem to care. That smile was still there. Bigger now. His other hand clutched something. A long, jagged blade glinting in the moonlight. I fumbled with my door handle. Locked. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. No signal. A slow, deliberate tap on the driver's side window. I turned. He was there, his face inches from the glass. His eyes were hollow, empty pits. His breath fogged the window as he whispered something I couldn't hear. Then he raised the knife. I didn't think I acted. I slammed the car into drive and hit the gas. The car lurched forward, knocking him aside. I didn't look back. I just drove. Fast, reckless, not caring if I crashed. I needed to get away. The road blurred past me. Trees. More trees. A sign, gas station 2 miles. Hope surged through me. If I could just make it, something slammed into my side. The car spun. The world tilted. My head cracked against the window. Pain exploded in my skull. Then nothing. I woke up to silence. My car had stopped, half dangled over a ditch. My vision swam as I blinked the blood from my eyes. My head throbbed. My body screamed in protest as I reached for the door handle. Tap. 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 My breath caught. The man stood outside my window, that knife still in his hand. His head was tilted, like he was studying me. Amused. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. He raised the knife. I braced for impact, then, headlights flooded the road. A truck barreled toward us, horn blaring. The man's head snapped toward the noise. I didn't waste time. I threw open the door and tumbled out, crawling toward the approaching vehicle. The truck skidded to a stop. A man jumped out, shotgun raised. "Hey!" he shouted. "Get the hell away from her!" The man with the knife turned, eyes narrowing. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he was gone. 1 second he was there. The next, the shadows swallowed him whole. The truck driver rushed to my side. "Jesus, you all right?" I couldn't speak. My body shook as I clung to his arm. He helped me to his truck, locking the doors, keeping the engine running. We called the cops. They found my car, my shattered window, the blood on the pavement. But they didn't find him. They never found him. Weeks passed. I tried to move on. But I never took that road again. Never drove alone at night. And then, last night, I found something on my doorstep. A single note, scrawled in jagged handwriting. "See you soon." Hey everyone, thank you so much for supporting this channel. It truly means a lot. As a broke college student editing all my videos on an Android phone, it takes a lot of effort to bring these stories to life. A laptop would help me create better content faster, so if you enjoy my work, please subscribe and share. Your support makes all the difference. Thank you so much.